Welcome to the Author Your Life podcast, where you can write a new script for your life and become the hero of your story. I'm your host, David McRae. You are the author of your life. Let's get started.
All you have to decide is what to do with the time that is given to you.
In my experience, there's no such thing as luck.
It is not our abilities that show what we truly are. It is our choices.
Hello, story changers, and welcome back to another episode of the Isolation Inspiration Interview Series. Today's episode is with Judy van Niekerk. 20 years ago, Judy had an epiphany as she woke up from a self-inflicted near-death experience. Judy believed that she did not deserve to live, but recognized that this was not her belief, but one that had been told to her. You can let these beliefs go when you realize they are lies and you realize the truth that you do deserve the freedom you dream of. Today, Judy is an international best-selling author, award-winning entrepreneur, speaker, co-founder of Tribe of Traders, and wealth builder. Judy has established, built, and sold numerous multi-million-dollar businesses in many categories from property, logistics, agriculture, industrial hygiene, trading, and coaching in a number of different countries. In our interview today, you will learn, even when we don't have control, we have choice. The difference between being rich and being wealthy. Why we should try and find gratitude and not forgiveness. And how to deal with anger during coronavirus isolation. You're going to learn this and so much more in this interview with Judy van Niekerk. Judy, welcome to the Author Your Life podcast.
Thank you, David. It's great to be here.
I'd like to kick things off and give you an opportunity to establish a connection with our audience today. And I'd like to begin this by giving you the opportunity to share some of your story with us today, Judy. What has your narrative in life been up until this point?
Well, my guiding philosophy in life is really simple. And that is any area of life you're not empowered, you're going to be overpowered. And if you're not empowered financially, you're going to really struggle to be empowered in life. So, and that's why, for me, working with people, my everything that drives me from the moment I wake up in the morning every single day is being empowered. It's so important. And what drives me in my work and in my interactions with people and my research and my studies is how we can become more and more financially empowered, and also trying to get a handle and understand why more people are not financially empowered. So, and that has been a really interesting journey. When you're not empowered, you are essentially subjugated to the agendas of others, or the agenda of society or community or government. And when you are financially empowered, you have the headspace and time to focus on being empowered in all areas of your life. In society, as we know today, if you're not financially empowered, most of your time, energy, and effort and space in your head is actually focusing on ensuring that you've got enough to get through the month, you've got enough to deal with emergencies, you've got enough to give your family a holiday, a decent Christmas, and so on. So there, that's the basis of what drives me all the time. So I think it is, and I think it's very easy. Also, it's very easy if somebody was to say to me, "Well, how do I know if I'm empowered or not empowered?" You will know by, one, the level of inspiration you have in your approach to your life, and the language you are using as well. Sort of like if you're using the language, I must do this, or I should get to work, or I should get to work earlier, or I should work harder, I should, all of these sort of, all of these imperative words, they're indicators that you're doing things that are not perfectly aligned with your but with who you are, what your vision is for your life, what your true vision is, your genuine, authentic vision is for your life, congruent with your values. So, so it's very easy to know whether you are empowered or not. Another way is if you look at your life, what conflict is there? Because if there's conflict outside in your life, if there's stress, conflict, desperation, scarcity, lack, any of those sort of lower vibrational contracting states or emotions, they are a mirror image of what's going on inside. And the reason why that's going on inside is that you have a conflict between head and heart. Your heart, and it always knows the truth. Your heart and soul always knows the truth. The problem is we convince ourselves otherwise in our head. Mm-hmm. So that's what drives me every minute of every day. And one of the reasons why people are not financially empowered is, one, they're not living congruent with their values and their purpose in life. So therefore they're not in that expansive, inspired state. In order to effortlessly create and bring in wealth and finance, they're in a contracted state, and that then starts promulgating a series of beliefs and about themselves and about the extent of feeling that they don't deserve it. And then that also then leads to them building up beliefs that is actually a lie about what money is. So it all stems back to not being empowered, because if you're empowered, you're doing what you would love to do, and you are high energy, high level of inspiration, an expanded state. The universe meets you halfway, and that is the state of wealth. And what actually happens is money flows effortlessly in that state. But as soon as you're out of that, then all sorts of trickery and shape-shifting and things start happening that start contracting you and taking you further and further away from where it is where you deserve to be. So I always say, it's your birthright to be wealthy. You deserve the freedom that wealth brings. But so often we don't know. We get lost along the way for a whole host of reasons. We get lost along the way.
You speak very kind of wisely about this conflict that we have within us, and I sense that comes from an experience of conflict. Would I be correct in that assumption?
Well, I read this quote. It's from a guy called Dr. John, and it goes back to 1960s or thereabouts. I cannot find anything more out about it. I honestly can't, but I just love this quote, and that is, I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul. And when you stop and think about it, people are like, oh my gosh, no. That feels very uncomfortable, because the first thing that springs to mind for people is that everyone would be their enemy, and they don't know if they could deal with that level of isolation and all that sort of stuff. In actual fact, the truth is that if that is your state, and that's what you genuinely believe, and that's what you genuinely live by, the whole world won't be against you, because you'll be showing up authentically you. There'll be no reason for the whole world to be against you. But let me unravel that, and just give you a little bit of an overview of how and why that resonates for me. As a child growing up, I was isolated from the world. I was literally locked up for almost 20 years until I escaped. So when I was about 3 years old, till I escaped in my early 20s. It was a very brutal period, very violent, exceptionally violent, at times like life-threatening, many times life-threatening. And during those years of isolation, no school, no interacting with society, terror, absolute terror, terrifying experience, and at times not knowing if I would actually survive the beating or whatever was going on, right? So it was pretty horrific. But I had from a very early age, I had almost like a routine that I would, when I needed to get back in touch with something, I'd go to the bathroom, lock the door, and I would look in the mirror, and I would really look into that mirror beyond my eyes. It wouldn't see my physical. It'd be like I'd be reaching inside of me. And I would connect with what I called my something. And that something was so powerful. Obviously, not being educated, not interacting with society, I didn't know what to call it. Didn't know it was my soul, my spirit, my higher self, whatever it was, but it was my something. And I knew when I connected with that, nothing could damage me, nothing could kill me, nothing could hurt me, nothing could break it. It was unbreakable. You could do what you wanted to my mortal body, it did not matter, because my something was intact and I was in touch with it. That gave me such a powerful sense of peace, inner peace, and believe it or not, joy. I had such happiness, not happy as in, let's have a couple of glasses of wine and laugh and joke, not that. I'm talking about genuine sense of enrichment, fulfillment, and joy. So like, and in touch with the universe, in touch with the finer things in the universe. So like I could hear birds, I could hear the smell of grass and the leaves rustling. It's just incredible sense of connectedness outside of my mortal body. So, and that kept me strong, kept me grounded, kept me powerful. Then when I escaped, literally in my early 20s, in the middle of the night, I had to then break out and then, as you can imagine, learn how to interact with society, learn how to live, make a living, how to make friends, how to have relationships, and all of this sort of stuff. So when I escaped, apart from like the obvious immediate is I need to get some way of sustaining myself, I need to get a job and that. So I managed to get all that. So in those first number of months, it was definitely survival, right? So very much survival based in the first few months. But once I got beyond the survival and I realized, well, okay, I can do this. I can mix with, I can say hello and make friends and work and get paid and all that. So beyond that, then what came in was a desperation to make up for what I perceived were the lost 20 years. So then I was racing against time. So I was trying to fit so much into my life. And I was like spending my whole time, energy, and effort in being accepted by everybody, by making more and more money and having more and more experiences and going to more and more places. And the result was I was extremely successful in anything I did. I became an international sportswoman. I started businesses from nothing. I was fearless, completely fearless. Having come from background where I had life-threatening situations almost daily, it was,
child's play,
putting myself out there was not a big deal. Going for something like, hey, I'll get on the South African swimming team. Why not? Some people will probably think, oh my God, that's too scary. For me, why not? Do it. Just do it. And I do it. So, so I had this sense of like getting more and more and more. But what happened? Interesting. What happened in that process was a very fascinating thing. Was that in that process, I was 100% living outside of myself. Okay, living and seeking more and more and more outside. And it got to a point where it was insatiable. It's like a drug, right? It was creating, that adrenaline was creating a drug that I couldn't get enough of. It was just more. So I was getting into more and more dangerous sports. And I became competitive in everything. So I would take up water skiing and I would compete in water skiing, but that wasn't good enough. I then had to take it to another level. and do open sea water skiing, which is a completely different thing. Helmets, you're belted in. It's completely doing high speed, so it's completely different. Then I took up paragliding, which today is not a big deal, but 20 years ago, when it was a brand new sport, I was flying test shoots. So shoots that had not been tested, they were prototypes. And that's what I would fly dangerous sites dangerously, and then fly more and more dangerously and more aggressive, and I would compete and all that. So I constantly seeking more and more. That wasn't enough. Then, apart from doing those dangerous sports and then doing them dangerously, pushing the envelope on them, that wasn't enough. Then I started taking overdoses. So, because I was constantly looking for this more and more excitement. Now, it's not that I wanted to die, but if I died, I died. It didn't, it was a side effect. It wasn't my goal. So it got to a point where I took about 8 or 9 overdoses in an 18-month period. And I'll never forget the last time I went to take the overdose, my body didn't want to take the drugs. And it would be a mix of, I won't go into what they are, don't want to give it ideas. But, there'd be a mix of drugs, right? But there'd be a lot of them. And I would go to doctors and I would lie through my teeth about getting them. I would be shameless in lying to get them. And I would go to a whole different doctors to get the different prescriptions to make sure I had enough. But my body wanted to reject them. And that last time, not before, just that last time. But I ignored it because I'd made up my mind. I'm taking it. So that was probably the overdose that I came closest to death on. It was the worst one I had taken. But I didn't die. And the first thing I remember when I woke up in ICU, the first thing I remember was, it's over. I will never do that again. That would be the last one. It was done. And I knew why. It was the most remarkable feeling, because straight I got such clarity what was going on. I was in hell. I had a life that people would give their right arm for. I had the latest cars. I had the greatest businesses. I was making more money I knew what to do with. I had 2 or 3 parties every single night, and great life. Massive success in whatever I did, but that was hell. That was my definition of hell, because I had lost my something. And it was as clear as day in that moment that what I had been through in the years of isolation and being locked up was heaven, despite the fact that I was in outer hell, I was in inner heaven. But when I escaped, my life was in chaos. I was in what would, to anybody else looking from the outside at my life, would say, well, that's heaven. Well, I was actually in inner hell. That was the epiphany for me. And that's when I realized and soon after I found this quote, I'd rather have the whole world against me than my own soul.
Yeah.
And everything changed for me in that moment, everything. So that is why I am passionate. I spend my life on empowerment. And empowerment means living authentically through your heart center, being true to yourself, living 100% in alignment with your purpose and your values. Because when you're in that space, you cannot be overpowered.
Mm-hmm.
So that's it in a nutshell. So my experiences have created this, I suppose, this purpose of mine. But then, the question is, did they create my purpose, or was that my purpose and I needed to go through that in order to be able to create this? So it's like, which came first? So yeah. So that is why I'm so deeply passionate about it, and that's why when you are empowered and when you are living congruent and authentically to what's in your heart, and listening to the voice of your heart and allowing that voice of your heart to be louder than any of the voices outside, that's when you are empowered. When you don't, you are subjugated. You subjugate yourself to the agendas of others, community, society, and you're vulnerable. And that's where you actually start impacting your ability to be wealthy, to build wealth, be wealthy. And I'm not just talking about money. People don't understand. By and large, in my experience, in my work, I've learned that people don't understand the difference between wealth building and money. It's a massive difference.
Mhm.
Wealth comes from being empowered. Money comes and goes. When you're empowered and you're building wealth from that place, money is a limitless resource, but it's not when you're focusing on just making money from that doesn't, it's a very, when you're just focusing on making money and thinking that making money is what's going to build wealth, that's when it's hard to get. It's when it's hard to get, hard to grow, and hard to hold on to. But when you're focusing on it from the perspective of it being the effect and not the cause is who you are. When you're looking at it from that perspective, that's where it becomes a renewable, unstoppable, abundant, limitless resource.
There's two key moments that I kind of picked up in that account. There is breaking out of the prison at 20, and there's this, what you call the final overdose. Each of those seem to be two very key decisions in how your life has panned out. Can you talk us through some of the decision-making process involved in both of those decisions? They might be similar, they might be different, I don't know.
Well, I was locked up by my father, and I knew if I didn't get out, I would kill him. So, or he'd kill me. So I had no choice. So I wasn't prepared to do that. I nearly killed him on another occasion, because as I was growing up, he was losing control, and because he used to drug me a lot as well as I was growing up, and then I found out he was drugging me, and therefore I would never let him give me food after that. So I came stronger, as you can imagine, and on one occasion, not long before I did escape, I lost it, and I was stronger than I thought I could even begin to imagine. I had such strength and rage, and it was a pretty ugly situation. So I knew that if I didn't do something, if I didn't break out, that he would kill me or I'd kill him. Neither of which I wanted. So yeah, I had to get out. So it just became a non-negotiable. So then taking the last overdose. When I was taking the last overdose, I didn't know that would be the last one. It was just more of the same, except I think on a deeper level, the reason why my body was rejecting it, was trying to reject the pills, was that I was beginning to realize, without being conscious of it, that what the problem was. Because I would see therapists, and I'd sit there and people would tell me, you got to go and see a therapist, or no one can survive that sort of trauma, and all this sort of thing. For years I was very private about it, but then I reported my father, because there wasn't just my father, there was other people involved as well. So I reported him, and I started talking about it. People saying, like, you got to go and see therapy, psychologists or social workers or whatever. And I saw many, okay, and we sit there and we'd run the story, and I knew that this was meaningless. I knew on a cellular level that whatever was done to me I did not need therapy for that. That was not the problem. I knew it. And it wasn't until I woke up from that last overdose I realized what the problem was, what the issue was. It had nothing to do with the torture, the hell that I'd been through, because that was just my mortal body. But when I woke up from that overdose, I realized that there was something greater I had lost in the process, which I lost when I left, not when I was in it. And when I reconnected to that, now I had freedom, I had empowerment, I had choice, I had control, and I had my heart and soul and my something. I had everything. That's empowerment.
I'm
So,
curious, as I've been listening to you so far, Judy, and the words you've been saying and the concepts you've been talking about, why did you decide on money as the vehicle that you would work on to help people find the same place that you had?
interesting question. That's a really, really good question. When I was growing up, as you can imagine, I'm not going to school, right? One of the things that my father was, he had a high value on learning, right? So I would, if I asked for books, he got me books. I educated myself. I got to about 12 or 13, and I couldn't read or write, and I was deaf until about then. But so I could pretty much pick and choose what it is I wanted to read and learn. And I had a fascination for business, economics, finance, what makes the world go round. I had a really deep fascination for that. So all the books that I asked him to get me were all books around economics and business and organizations and structure, political science and that sort of stuff, philosophy, sociology, but mainly as it relates to business and economics. So, and I always, in my heart, when I would dream about one day getting out, getting away, because I would dream about it for years, fantasize even about getting away and breaking out and escaping. I knew that one day when I did, I would either be, and this is what I wanted, to get into stockbroking, trading, shipping, oil and gas. There were the sort of sectors I had a drive to work in. Now, bearing in mind, there were times that we were so poor. One time I was eating dog food out of a tin. That's how poor we were. So there I am studying economics and reading Adam Smith, like the father of modern day economics, reading his theories, his philosophies, when most kids are reading Black Beauty or Enid Blyton. So that's what my stark reality is lack, poverty, scarcity, no food. I was going to make damn bloody sure that when I got out, I was financially empowered. So, and interestingly, when I did get out, when I did escape, my very first job was I was an accountant on a trading floor for an oil and gas company where we were trading futures oil and gas. That was my
Managed
first
to get
job.
them all.
So, but again, interestingly, I was fired after 10 months, not because I was incompetent, I like to be, but more because I was not a conformist. I didn't conform. And I was then fired from any job I ever had. I never lasted in a job for more than sort of 6 months or 10 months. So after a few years of that, I thought, well, this ain't working. I then realized that I have to do my own thing. And that is congruent to my values, because again, for me, imagine I'd been overpowered my whole life, told what I could do, what I couldn't do, completely and utterly controlled. I go into a corporate, and what am I experiencing but more of the same? Of course I'm going to rebel. Okay, so, and my whole studies all the way through my life was all about being empowered and understanding finance and how the world works. I was born to do my own thing. I taught myself, I guided myself through that, but I had an innate interest in that. That's what I was born to do. And so I started doing my own thing. So I started building my own businesses now for over 25 years. And again, interestingly, I have had such a wide, diverse range of businesses. I have not just stuck to one industry or one niche. So, which has been absolutely incredible and interesting, fascinating, exciting, dramatic, traumatic. So yeah, that's where it comes from. But the one golden thread, there's two golden threads that runs through absolutely everything that I've ever done, from the moment I escaped to right through to today, is that everything I've ever done, the golden thread running through it is about empowering myself and others all the time. Every single time, if I look back on everything I've ever done, that's the golden thread. The other golden thread that runs through it is about financial empowerment. It's about having financial empowerment. But then I do have another philosophy in life, which I live by 100%, is a fun-filled life, is a fulfilled life. So I absolutely have a high value on having fun. So I was like saying to some my guys, clients the other day on a webinar, when I say about having fun, it doesn't mean just laughing, cracking jokes, having a few glasses of wine. Yeah, that's fun, but that's not the sort of fun I'm talking about. I'm talking about heart fun, talking about fun from the heart space. So I very, very tuned into that and very quickly pick up that when I'm not having fun anymore, where things are hard, it's a slog, it's stress. That's when I realize it's not fun anymore. And I've obviously gone down an avenue, down a road that is not the road that is inspiring for me, that's feeding my soul. And that's like an alarm that goes for me and think, okay, I ask myself, well, why am I not having fun? Okay, so I unpack it, unravel it, and then change direction till I am having fun. And again, I'm not talking about the superficial fun. I think there's a lot of value in having superficial fun, but I'm talking about heart-centered, heart-filled fun. So everything I've ever done also fits in with that philosophy as well. Mm-hmm. So you only have one life. Why have it so serious? Why be so serious? Have fun. And that's the way I am in my relationship with my friends, with my work, in all areas of my life. So yeah.
What's the difference between being rich and being wealthy?
You can be wealthy and rich, but you can also be rich and poor. Excuse me. So you can actually have a lot of money and be rich, but still be very unhappy, be very unfulfilled, and you'll still feel that there's something lacking. And no matter what you do, it's like an empty well that you just cannot fill. And some people are able to do that. The majority of people are not able to do that because they will sabotage, or they will start, like, they won't be able to hold on to money. They might be able to make a lot of money, but they won't be able to hold on to it. So they'll end up at the end of the year having made $500,000 in a year maybe, but be broke and have to borrow to pay tax, for example, because they'll be spending and frivolous with their money for immediate gratification. Whereas if you're building wealth, and you're building sustainable long-term wealth, where you are doing it from a sense of empowerment, from a place, of empowerment, and from a sense of fulfillment, where you are doing what you were born to do, the effect will be wealth, not just in a financial sense, but in all areas of your life. Abundance, prosperity in all areas of life. And money will actually flow, and you won't have the need for immediate gratification where you're frivolous with the spending of your money. I'm not saying you won't go out and buy frivolous things, that's not what I'm saying, but it'll be in context of your overall wealth, where you are. You won't be spending, if you're bringing in £1,000 a month, you're not going to be spending £700 on a pair of Nike shoes, for example. You know what I'm saying? So yeah, it's just that's the difference between rich and wealthy. You can be rich and wealthy, but you can also be rich and poor. So and it's that sense of fulfillment. It's like, and interestingly, we always know, we will always know somebody who has a lot of money but is not wealthy, is not empowered, has the opposite philosophy. It's like, would rather have the whole world for them than their own soul. Somebody in that type of space will have this sinking feeling that no matter what they do, it's not enough. There will never be a sense of fulfillment. That brings up that's low vibrational states that person will be in, and that brings up more and more of the lower vibrational emotions like fear, shame, guilt, regret. And that person will be interacting with life in that space, and that's where around them that life will have conflict, stress, anger, frustration, scarcity, not necessarily in money, but necessarily scarcity in friends, in ease, in flow. That's what will be all around them, and that's simply a reflection of what's going on inside. Somebody who's wealthy hasn't got that. There is an expansive state, there's flow, there is there's no lack, there's no perception of lack, there's abundance, there's prosperity, and there's ease in all areas of their life. There's gratitude, compassion, empathy, and more importantly, abundance of love.
We've been talking a lot so far about inner stuff, self-worth, empowerment, and I think money is something that is often particularly intertwined with our notions of self and self-worth in particular, and the numbers in our bank account equal how valid we are as a human. How, if somebody is in that state where money equals self-worth, how do you begin to unravel that connection?
So for me, money is energy. Money is the physical manifestation of spirit. The extent to which you have money is the extent of which you have self-worth. So they are intricately intertwined. So if you have lack, if you perceive you've got lack of money, you don't have enough money, you're stressed about money, you don't know if you've got enough, you're struggling to get enough through the month, or kids' uniforms, or whatever it might be for you. But that's an indication that your life is being run on the lower vibrational states, or in those lower vibrational states. You need to find out why. What is it? One of the most important, there will be belief systems that are keeping that a reality for you, or keeping you in that state. There will be belief systems. Now, here's the interesting thing about beliefs is that the beliefs that we have that are not supportive are 9 times out of 10 beliefs that we've been told and we've taken on. Occasionally, there were beliefs we'd have adopted because there was a significant impact, a significant event, and we developed a belief about that. And it was significant enough to myelinate the neurons in our brain to that spot, in that way, that we then, ever going forward, continue to hold on to that belief. Be interesting once you get to know what your beliefs are, and when you start asking yourself a question, well, does that support me? Does yes or no? If it no, where did it come from? Is it mine? And when you start finding out where the origin of that belief is, you'd be surprised that it might, 9 times out of 10 they were told and you took them on, and the occasional one, it would be something that you experienced in a point in time, and it may have been appropriate for that point in time, not for every single incident going forward. So it's being clear on the beliefs that you have about yourself, and asking yourself the question, are they supportive, are they not supportive, where do they come from, and if they can you replace it with another belief, and if not, then you need to, what I call, charge that challenge. You need to balance that perception. You need to, what I call, like, charge it, change it, to break that charge, to break your perception around that belief. You need to really balance that perception, because what happened was you developed a belief about yourself, and in that moment your brain myelinated and synaptically connected, and every time we relive that belief, every time we respond based on that belief, you're building up the proteins, and that's around that neuron, making it more and more automatic that we respond to that belief, and harder to make the decision to respond differently. That's why in that you need to be what I generally do with people is I get them to peel back start getting clear about their beliefs, understanding where they come from, how they can reframe them, and those that have charge associated with them, we charge those challenges and we start balancing the perception around them. Because most times all the time, they have a perception that was all good, all bad and no good, or all good and no bad. When you start balancing that perception, when you start seeing it as just an event or just an incident, rather than the perception or the meaning that you've applied to it, it reframes everything. And that's when you're actually able to remyelinate the neurons in your brain, that when you do it once, you don't need to do it again. That's how powerful we are as people, as humans. That's how powerful we are. So getting clear about your beliefs is the first step. And peeling that back, understanding where it came from. And understanding, the other thing as well, is that we are the sum of every single living moment that we've had up to now, and every single one of those moments was a choice that we always made. So understanding and embracing that we are the cause of our effect. So whatever we are right now, we've caused it. The single hardest thing for us to do is to be honest with ourselves. That's so hard. But yet, here's the irony. It is the single most empowering thing we can do, is to be honest with ourselves. And when you accept that, when we start looking and accepting that we are the cause of our effect, that we are exactly where we are based on every single one of the decisions we made, then don't you think that it's limitless what we can create? If we're the cause of our effect, isn't it limitless what we can create? But you've got to be conscious of it. So many of us live in unconscious competence. This is what my drive with my clients is: be consciously competent, consciously aware. The more conscious you are, the more you will hear the voice that's in your head, the more you will be able to understand what that is, because we've got two driving forces. We've got the amygdala, the reptilian brain, that drives our predator-prey, fight or flight, which has a place. It stops us getting run over by a bus, but has a place, but it doesn't have a place in ruling our life. The place to go to there is your heart and soul. So being able to identify and have quiet enough mind for you to hear the voice of your heart, and not allow your heart to be drowned out by the voice of the amygdala, which is just nothing but the beliefs and perceptions you have gained throughout your life, been told to you and gained. And this starts happening neonatal. This before you're even born, we're starting to take on these perceptions. So like significant events in your life, how do you perceive them? Because they are just events. It's like for me, in my experience, it was just a series of events. How I label it, the meaning I apply to them, will define how I define myself, my life, then and now and tomorrow. But it's just a series of events. So I can either see them as extremely traumatic and hell and, oh, woe is me, it was so awful, it was so bad, or I can see it for what it is, just a series of events. And I could actually then, once I start having that open line of inquiry, so how did it serve me? What were the benefits I gained? What were my opportunities in that space? Which is why when we're in lockdown now, I'm going through the very same thing. This is like, it's perfect. It's a reflex.
You've had a lot of practice, yeah.
I've had tons of practice. It's perfect. That's why I am able to see with such clarity the benefits that are in this lockdown period. Because there are massive values, massive opportunities, massive benefit. As traumatic as it is, I mean, the whole media and the politicians are throwing up this massive, massive drama. To the extent of which there is drama, fear, there's the equal and the exact opposite. Where we would be wise is just to find the balance. If you're feeling oppressed, where are you free? If you're feeling lost, where have you gained? And the more in which you balance your perceptions, the less you're driven by the beliefs that are lopsided and become unsupportive. So go back over your life, look at the challenge you've experienced, and if you felt you were hard done by, felt you were overpowered, felt you were abused, felt you whatever it might be, where did it serve you? Because what you've done is you've applied a meaning to it that's all negative. Start looking at the balance of it, bring yourself back to center, look at then the perfection, and that's when your heart opens and you feel nothing but gratitude and love. And that's the place that I got to.
I feel this is
So
a good time to transition into talking about coronavirus and lockdown and everything else at the moment. How's the lockdown situation been affecting you so far, Judy?
Personally or in work?
Both.
It's because, as I've said a moment ago, it actually is familiar. There's a sense of familiarity about it. I sort of slip into it quite easily and effortlessly, actually. But I do need to manage the rage that, because I've spent 20 years in lockdown, and now you're doing it to me again. It's like, I have to manage that rage, as much as I always see the balance and always see the benefits. I'd be inhuman if I was not to always also occasionally see the other, feel the other side of it. Okay. But then the benefit to that is that I'm able to understand what people will be feeling. So then when I'm speaking to my clients, I'm able to speak to them not from the point of view of being, hey, look, it's all great, it's wonderful, there's amazing benefits. They're going to think, oh, this woman's cuckoo, right? I'm able to connect with people who are feeling that sense of being overpowered. I can relate to it very, very rawly. So it's an interesting experience. And coupled with that, and I don't believe there are any accidents. Right now in our block, we're on the river, as I mentioned to you earlier. We're on the River Thames. Our block is going through renovate or upgrade around outside. All the windows and doors, the doors on the balconies overlooking the water, everything's all being replaced. So the whole place is surrounded in scaffolding and blue netting. It was only just finished before lockdown. So around my balcony, there's scaffolding and blue netting. So that's like the physical manifesting of prison.
Yeah.
It's really interesting that it happened at the same time. And ironically, also, we knew this was happening. So Tiny and I decided that we're going to go off to the States. We rented a beach apartment on the beach in Fort Lauderdale for 3 months. And we were going, I think, 2 or 3 days after President Trump banned all flights from the UK. So it was interesting to get to this point. I was definitely meant to be here right now, but I can see so clearly how this is a perfect opportunity to reevaluate life. One of the things that I do with clients, because I've got a range of different clients, and a lot of my clients are also traders, so I deal with a lot of different people in helping them become financially empowered in many different ways. And one of the ways is with trading. So I talk to my traders. We have a unique way of trading. We trade from the heart, which is a bit different. Not many people will speak like that. But one of the things that exercises I make sure they do when they first work with me is get very clear on their vision. So one of the ways, so often people don't know how to do that. It takes a while. If you've never thought about it, it takes a while to get clarity on that, and that's okay. But one of the exercises I get them to do is you're 98 years old, you're sitting on a balcony of your house. Where are you? Who's with you? You're looking at, what are you looking out over? Who's in your life? Who has been in your life? What have you done? What have you achieved? Who's been along the journey with you? All that type of thing. Really powerful exercise, and it helps get clarity. It's not the only way to do it. There's a lot more. There's a lot more powerful ways to do it, but that's a very easy way to start. But right now, we actually have that opportunity to do that right now in this lockdown environment. It's a really important time to reevaluate. And there's a lot of people going to be reevaluating their life right now. And I think coupled with time, a lot of people have time now. that they haven't had. Time is the most important, most valuable asset we have, and also a non-renewable asset. It's a non-renewable resource. But right now we have time. So now's the time to reevaluate. Something else that will support that is the silence. We now have silence.
Yeah.
Right? Parents might say, well, come and stay at my house for a couple of days and hear the kids, right? But aside from that, we do have silence because we don't have the distraction of going out and people around us. And there is a level of silence, no matter where you are, because all of a sudden so many different things are now stopped and not accessible for us. So one of the reasons why we love noise, why people have TVs on 24/7 or whatever, noise on, music blaring for hours on end, is it takes them out of their head. They don't have to listen to what's going on in their head. They're distracted by what's going on outside. Now is a good time to start listening to the voices in because you will have the voices in your head, but also your heart, and start asking yourself questions. I remember my life mentor is a guy called Dr. John Demartini, and he's a great friend and a phenomenal mentor. And one of the things he said to me many years ago, and it took me a long, long time to really wrap my head around this. He said, the quality of your life is dependent on the quality of questions you ask yourself. It took me a while to wrap my head around that. But when I did, it was life-changing. And I think it'd be wise for all of us at all the time, that's why I say be consciously competent, be conscious of what you're putting your thoughts on, be conscious of what the words are that you're using in your head. Ask yourself, where did that come from? Is that mine? Why do I think like that? What is the emotion attached to that? How does that make me feel? You start asking yourself all these questions, and you start getting clarity on what's the bull in your life and what's real in your life. And that's the way in which you start accessing the voice of your heart. And when you start accessing the voice of your heart and you let that go, that becomes so loud it drowns out all the noise of anybody or anything else in the world. And when you start living congruently with that, that's when you're 100% empowered.
Something that you said actually quite soon into that account and that answer, talking about the anger and the frustration, and so far on this series that I've been doing, I don't think this is something that we've actually really touched upon, but I think it is going to be a big deal right now that a lot of people, yes, I think we've been talking about the fear a lot of the panic and what's going to go on and what's going to happen. Yeah. But I think actually there are going to be a lot of people who are angry and frustrated who are saying, well, this doesn't affect me, or I'll be safe, or I'll be fine. Why do I have to give up X, Y, and Z? Or even just angry, maybe the opposite way, that why have we only just put these precautions in now and maybe we could have stopped it, or would it have been so bad? So I think this will be quite a large emotion that so far I don't think has been talked about that much. I think you're in a quite good place to give some insight into how do we process that type of feeling that we might have in terms of anger and frustration.
I think it probably hasn't been spoken about much because we haven't got there yet. Okay, I think we're in apathy. I think a lot of people are feeling a lot of apathy right now. Anger will still come, and you will find that a lot of people will be speaking about that more as we get closer to the 3 weeks, and especially if it's not 3 weeks in the UK. You're going to start finding a lot of people talking about a lot of anger. So it will come. It will definitely come, because it's not just like people who feel, well, I'm not at risk, why should my life be affected? Or, why wasn't it done sooner? And that there are people who believe this is the wrong thing to do. There is, and they honestly believe it, not through any sense of carelessness or not giving a damn about others. It's not, because they actually really believe this is the wrong thing to do. There'll be a lot of people who believe that. There will be a lot of people who will start feeling the pinch financially as well, and so on. So anger will certainly start coming into play. The one thing that we need to be mindful of is that we don't have control over that. If the government says you're in lockdown, you're in lockdown. It's the same as if you voted Labour, sorry, you've got Conservatives. You know what I'm saying? So it's the same sort of thing. You've got no control, but you have choice. You've always got choice. And understanding and remembering that you've always got choice, it helps, it goes a long way to helping deal with whatever the emotion is that you're dealing with. So if you're feeling anger, you have the choice either to subjugate yourself to that anger or to empower yourself through it. And I think it's as simple as that. There's nothing more complicated than that. And again, that comes down to being consciously competent, consciously aware of what you're feeling and catching yourself. We have choice. We're going to get through this. Are you going to get through it powerfully, or are you going to get through it scarred? The choice is ours. The choice is when we make that choice with every living moment that we live during this process. And if you can spend your time knowing that it will get harder, it's not going to get easier, okay? It has to. It's going to get harder because the longer people are in lockdown, you know, you've got all these emotions coming up and the anger is coming. Knowing, if you know that, you know you will prepare yourself for it. Reevaluate. Are you exactly where you would love to be in life right now? Are you with who you would love to be with right now? If you're feeling not, look at how everything that is taking you to where you are right now has served you. Do not start building up resentment about the fact that you're not where you would love to be. How has it served you? Because you have created it. The sum of your choices have created where you are right now. So it has equally served you as it may have not served you. Find out where it has served you. And from that place, when you get to that place is you will have a sense of gratitude, open-hearted, love and appreciation for yourself and everything that you've achieved so far in life. Now, from that place, where is it that I want to go now? Where do I powerfully want to take my life now? And start getting clear on that vision. Look forward. Look forward a year, 5 years, 10 years, 50 years, 100 years even. Whatever it is, get that vision, get clarity on that vision. The extent of the clarity you have, the louder the voice of your heart will be. And the louder the voice of your heart, that will drown out everything outside. And get very clear on what that is you would love to create. And then start breaking down the goals, start breaking it down into timeframes, into what needs to be done, by when, and what are the steps that need to be done in order for you to do that. And you will find that there are things you can start doing now, today, and tomorrow and the next day that will take you powerfully on that. As you start putting that into practice, you will ensure that you are on a trajectory that's going one way, and that will just compound and exponentially grow because your focus will be consciously on it. And now's the time to do it. There will never in our lifetime be another time like right now.
Yeah, you've touched upon something that I've loved so far in this series, that almost everyone I've spoken to thus far, and the people who are listening to these will be probably sick of me saying this already, actually. How many people thus far have used the word opportunity? It's actually been nearly everyone. And you've used it as well, talking about some of the opportunities that we have. Are there any opportunities that you haven't talked about so far that you think are available in this situation right now?
Well, if you're not online, get online.
Yeah.
Excuse me, sorry. Yeah, that's an opportunity. So I'm with one of my groups of clients. I'm on every single day with them. Every evening we get online and we're taking their business online. So they're pivoting with, and I'm guiding them through that and putting their business online. And I think this is going to change the world in terms of how we see online. So us onliners, we already know it. We can see it. We understand it. But it's going to change the world in terms of how they see it. And the interesting thing is I have a massive bugbear at the moment, and I'll speak about that in a moment. But one of the things that's really interesting, people are starting to understand that you can actually have true connection online. People are gathering. One of my clients had a Zoom call with 16 of his friends from back in Eastern Europe. He's in London, right? He would only ever see them once a year, maybe, and not all together when he goes back to see them. But they had a party online.
Yeah.
Okay. I've just been invited to a party on Sunday night with a friend of mine. And like, normally she would probably have 5 or 6 people at a dinner, but now she's going to have like, I don't know, 40, 50 people on a Zoom call. It's changing the way we perceive online. It's going to make the world smaller. So one of the things that my bugbear at the moment is I really am passionate about this, is that for one or other reason, deliberate or otherwise, the term is social distancing.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that is quite a destructive term. We are social beings. We need social. We need community. We thrive in community, not on isolation. But we're not isolated. It's not social distancing. I am more social now than I've ever been in my life. And I know a lot of other people are as well. I mean, I've never seen some of my mates so often as I have in the past week. I want some break from them, you know?
Yeah, me too.
You know what I'm saying? So it's physical distancing. I think we should call it what it is. And the problem is with the social distancing, it's screwing with our head. Because we're online, we are very social, but then the moment we go out into the real world and you're queuing at the shop, you know, that's a mile long to get into the supermarket, everyone's in their own lockdown. Nobody will talk to the other person. Everyone's like avoiding them. There's like everyone's making massive skirtings around each other. And there's 2 reasons for that. One is they're doing their bit in not spreading the virus, right? That's the one driver. But the other driver is that person might give me the virus, right? So they've got this conflict going on. And it's like we're becoming enemies of each other when we go out there into the world physically. We can be social, yet keep physical distance. Right. We can talk to, like, some people prefer 5 meters, not 2 meters. That's fine. I have no problem talking to the person 5 meters away if I could only get them to talk. Right?
Yeah.
Nobody talks. It's all enemies. I mean, in some tribes in Africa, it's rude to speak quietly. Okay, so they speak loud. So let's adopt some of that attitude. Let's just speak loudly. You know. So yeah, I really would love us to change the word social distancing to physical distancing, because that's what it is. We are more social now than ever, and certainly people will start. It'll make the world smaller, and people will start appreciating the value of, you know, online. So I think that's going to be an incredible opportunity. It's going to be fascinating. It's going to create more and more opportunities in a world and an environment where we're growing and evolving ever faster, exponentially, to a world of computer robots and AI, where a lot of people are feeling this, that potentially their job or their role will be defunct. Now look at the amount of opportunities that are being created right now. Think of the businesses that are going to be birthed in this time. It's going to be incredible. And they're going to change the way we live, and they're going to change society.
Yeah.
So
I like to start wrapping up everything that we've been talking about so far, and focus on a few key concepts to finish off. And the first of these you actually touched upon earlier. I can't remember exactly at which point, but it's gratitude. What are you grateful for in life?
What am I not grateful for? Everything. No, absolutely everything. Everything. There's nothing I'm not grateful for. And if I find myself not grateful, I very quickly get grateful for it. And that includes all my experiences growing up. I'm deeply grateful for that. I had a great fortune that I did report my father, and he was sentenced. He was sentenced to 54 years. And I had the case held out of camera as well, so which meant that it was publicly reported. It had never happened before in the world. So I got a hell of a lot of attention, a lot of media attention. And a few years later, I got called by the police and then told that he was dying and he'd been transferred to a hospice. And I knew straight away what I needed to do. Hung up the phone and turned to Tiny and said, I need to go to see him. And I didn't understand why at the time. I didn't understand why. I just knew that I needed to do this. So I went to go and see him, and first words out of my mouth were, "Thank you, I love you." I had such
Wow.
gratitude for all of the experiences that I had had. Now, a lot of people find that very, very hard to understand, but you you can't what people often make the mistake of, they perceive other people's experiences through their own eyes. We all have our own path to walk. We all have our own journey, and we must never subjugate ours compared to somebody else. Comparison is the thief of freedom, I think. There is a saying, you cannot compare your life, you cannot try and understand somebody else's life. Everyone has to do what's on their journey, on their path, and we must respect that, must love that, and must appreciate them for that. And for me, it was important to be able to see where I could get the benefits from all that. For example, I mean, I wouldn't have the relationship I have now without those experiences. I wouldn't have the freedom I have now. I mean, I have no fear. In terms of the world economy shutting down, I have zero fear. Not because I don't care, because I know that I will thrive through it. That there's nothing life can throw at me that I will be terrified of. So yeah, and I've had the most incredible experiences even in my mad years, as I call them. So yeah.
I guess the obvious follow-up question to that, and I wasn't planning to ask it, is you must have found forgiveness for your dad.
No.
Can you? No.
I don't like that word forgiveness.
Okay.
I'm anti-forgive. I don't like it. I think forgiveness is an emotion. Okay. When you're balanced and in that state of gratitude where your heart's open, there is only love. So where does forgiveness belong there? There is no forgiveness. Forgiveness is to put yourself on a pedestal and somebody in the pit to say, oh, well, I forgive you. You've done me so much wrong. And the moment you do that, you're assuming they've done you more bad than good. When everything in the world, the universe works hard to create balance. So no, I don't. There's no forgiveness. There was no forgiveness necessary. So for example, when I did say that to my father, he did not say, I'm sorry. He didn't. And I didn't need to hear, I'm sorry. Because by him saying to me, I'm sorry, he's assuming he's done me more harm than good.
Yeah.
When he didn't, that would be a lie.
So what I'm hearing for that is search for gratitude and not forgiveness.
Yes.
Yeah.
There's a big difference.
Mm-hmm.
Like when you're saying, when you're feeling like when you need to forgive or when you need to get forgiveness, you're only seeing one side of the story. You're not seeing the balance. And in that, if you're only seeing one side of the story, you cannot have gratitude. And you certainly don't have unconditional love in your heart. And that is where there's empowerment. I always say to people, you can't pay lip service to this. It has to be real. And one of the ways you know that is the language you're using. So if you're needing forgiveness, if you need to look for forgiveness, or if you need to forgive, you know that you are still polarized.
Mm.
Whereas if you can say, thank you, I love you, that's a heart-centered, balanced, equilibrated state to be in. That's heart opening, that's expansive, that's high vibrational. That's where you grow, that's where you're limitless, that's where you're unstoppable, that's where you're empowered, that's where you are wealthy. Beyond what words can express.
Yeah, that's fascinating. I had never thought of it or seen it in that way before, and I almost kind of want to end on that bombshell, actually. But there are a few more things I want to touch upon just before we finish. The first of which is, we've been talking so far about how this current situation, I think, is going to be a very seminal moment in human history, and we're going to see a lot of changes off the back of this, and a lot of changes that will shape the rest of the century. And I don't think it's hyperbole to say that at all. Yeah. I want you to imagine you have a young child in front of you, no more than 5 years old, and they're really going to inherit the changes of this century and see the changes that come to pass. You're going to say something to this child to prepare them for the life that they're about to live. what would you be saying to the child?
What would I say to the child for the life they're about to? Well, without doubt, probably one of the reasons why I don't have a child is because what I would do with that child, that child would be living in accordance with their values, be very conscious and very aware of what their purpose is in life, and to live aligned with that, and in doing so learn what it is they elect to learn in that as well. So if they don't want to do maths, they don't do maths, as an example. So very much and from being empowered from day one. So I'm not a fan of schools. I'm not a fan of, I'm not the way in which schooling is done. I'm not. So it's that we're overpowering children. We're forcing them what to learn. So I understand that a lot of parents will disagree with me, but I think, to answer your question, I would very much, if I had a 5-year-old, allow them to do and have the freedom that I had. Even though I was isolated, locked up, very violent living, I had freedom with my mind. I could learn whatever it is I wanted to learn, focus on what I wanted to focus on. And I would do the same for a child. That if I had a child at 5 years old, that's exactly the same I would do for them. Let them live to the fullest expression of their potential every minute of every day, their potential on their agenda, guided by guiding them, right? Obviously, you've got to, as adults, we've got to guide them against polarized actions, right? Obviously, but it's always coming from a place of love, communicating with love. And here's one of the most important things we can all do. There's 3 ways in which we communicate. We communicate carelessly, carefully, or caringly all the time, whether it's to parents, to children, to colleagues, to siblings, to whatever it is how we communicate. Even politicians would be wise to learn this as well. Okay. So if we're communicating carelessly, we are subjugating the person we're speaking to, or the people we're speaking to, putting our values higher than theirs. If you're speaking to people carefully, you are subjugating yourself to their agenda, to their values. Okay, when you learn to master the art of speaking caringly or communicating caringly, you are speaking in your values to their values. And that, I think, is the most important skill you can have in rearing a child into the next generation. And that's where that child will learn, how to navigate through life in that heart-centered space. I think that's the most powerful thing I would do.
Yeah. Moving from the start of life to the end of life, something you've talked about a couple of times is the work you do in your clients in terms of getting them to have future projections and think of where they want to be later in life or near the end of their life. For you, Judy, when you reach the end of your life and you look back at the time that you've been given on Earth, what legacy do you want to have left?
Without doubt, I want to create a paradigm shift on how we perceive our challenges. That's what I want to do. So I want to work with people, to put enough people to create a wave of change, literally a paradigm shift from a place where we stop running away from our challenges and keep on seeking support, to a point where we have appreciation and gratitude for the support we have and run towards our challenges, because in our challenges are our greatest gifts and opportunities for us to thrive.
For the audience who've been listening today and they've resonated with your story and your message and your teaching, and they want to find out a little bit more about who you are and what you do, where would you be directing them to go?
Well, the best place would be to go to judyv.com. That's the starting point. So it's JUDYVEE.com. And actually in there, I've got a wealth, what I call, because I've created this wealth thermometer, which is in a self-assessment of how your ability to earn, grow, and hold on to wealth. And it gives you a good idea of where you are on that scale in your wealth thermometer, and obviously where it is you need to focus on in order to grow it, to grow your wealth thermometer. So anybody's free to come to that. And then also I am doing a challenge. Well, it's not a challenge. I'm doing actually a program, running a program. I normally do a wealth breakthrough challenge, but I'm changing it. I'm starting it in a couple of weeks' time, changing it completely. I'm working with people on how they can actually, how and what to do in order to start reevaluating where they are right now and putting in the foundations as to what it is they would love to create going forward.
Mm-hmm. Judy, I'd like to thank you for taking the time to speak with us today. I've really resonated with quite a few things, actually. And I normally try and point out one particular trait, but I think actually what's really stuck with me was that kind of discussion we had right at the end, the distinction between gratitude and forgiveness. That really sort of shifted something in me, and has actually pieced together a few dots in my head that I've been working on recently with those two emotions, feelings, call them what you will. So I'd like to thank you for that. I've really enjoyed, I guess, the clarity that you have come across in general throughout this conversation. In particular, I took away that little piece as well.
Cool, excellent. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you.
To continue to help you through this isolation period, I've decided to open up my Author Your Life Academy for free for the next 3 months. Author Your Life is my online educational community where you can access training sessions, workshops, and question and answers, and connect with other people around the world who are going through this situation and trying to make the best of things. The Academy normally costs $27 a month to subscribe, but for the next 3 months, I'm going to open that up for free. Essentially, you're getting a 3-month free trial of the platform. To access the Author Your Life Academy, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when prompted, enter the code CORONA in block capitals. Yes, what else would the code be? CORONA in block capitals, and that will take your $27 subscription down to $0 for the next 3 months. The Academy is where I'm going to be focusing a lot of my content during this difficult time. It's where I'm trying to bring people together to help and support each other as we go through this period of isolation, of fear, of uncertainty. I hope the Academy is something that will be able to help you too during this situation. So if you want to come in and join us, as I said, go to authoryourlife.org/academy, and when you sign up, enter the code CORONA, and that will give you 3 months for free. It's my gift to you to try and help and support during this time as best I can. Thank you so much for listening to this episode. If you enjoyed this episode, I'd appreciate it hugely if you could head over to iTunes and leave a rating and review for the podcast. With your review, please be as honest and detailed as you can be, because with honest and detailed feedback, that helps me to adapt and grow this podcast to most serve you, the listener. Also, if you enjoyed this episode, then make sure you subscribe to the podcast. That way you aren't going to miss any of the future episodes that we've got lined up for you. Until next time, remember that you are the author of your life. You hold the pen, and you can write whatever script you want for yourself. So go out today and write yourself a beautiful story.